Hello, friends. Tonight, we are witnessing a terrifying escalation in the Middle East. The direct war between Iran and Israel has now entered its fifth day, and the fighting has grown more intense and, honestly, more personal. Earlier today, Israeli warplanes conducted a daring and precise strike, hitting the headquarters of Iran's state broadcaster in the capital, Tehran. The attack happened while the news was live on air, which was a clear message aimed at a building that also served as a critical military communications hub. This was not just a military operation, it was a psychological blow, broadcast for the world to see and really designed to show that no target is out of reach for Israel. In response, Iran did not hesitate. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps unleashed another wave of ballistic missiles aimed at Israeli cities. Air raid sirens wailed across Tel Aviv, sending residents scrambling for shelter in a scene that is, sadly, becoming tragically familiar. Iran's military claims it has deployed a new missile tactic, a strategy designed to overwhelm Israel's sophisticated air defense systems, including the Iron Dome. The results on the ground suggest this tactic has had some success. The constant volleys of rockets are stretching Israel's defenses to their limit and bringing the terrifying reality of this war directly to its civilian population centers. The human cost of this conflict is mounting at an alarming rate. In Iran, reports indicate that at least 224 people have been killed, with a staggering 1,400 more injured. The casualties are largely civilians, caught in the crossfire of these powerful strikes. Israel's attacks have also been surgically effective in another way, eliminating much of Iran's senior military leadership and several of its top nuclear scientists. On the other side, in Israel, at least 24 civilians have lost their lives, and around 600 have been injured by the incoming Iranian missiles. Homes have been destroyed, and critical infrastructure like Haifa's Bazan Energy Power Station has been damaged, threatening the country's power supply. The damage extends beyond the immediate loss of life and property. In Tehran, a city of millions, there is a palpable sense of panic. Following Israeli warnings for civilians to evacuate certain areas, residents have been trying to flee, leading to massive traffic jams and severe fuel shortages. The internet has been disrupted, cutting off communication and deepening the chaos. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, Palestinian communities have been tragically affected by falling debris from intercepted missiles, facing the danger of a war they have no part in, with very little protection. This conflict is not contained to military bases. It is spilling into every corner of civilian life, creating a humanitarian crisis that grows with each passing hour. As the conflict rages, all eyes turn to the United States. Where does America stand? For now, the Trump administration is walking a very fine line. President Trump has made it clear that the United States will not be drawn directly into the fighting. American forces in the region are on high alert but remain in a defensive posture tasked with protecting U.S. assets, not engaging in offensive strikes against Iran. The White House's focus is on de-escalation. The president is actively pushing for a diplomatic solution and a ceasefire, using the possibility of renewed nuclear talks as a powerful incentive to bring both sides to the table and away from the brink. This American position has created a rift with its closest ally in the region. Israel is formally and urgently asking the Trump administration to join the war. Israeli leaders believe American military power is essential to achieve their ultimate goal, the complete elimination of Iran's nuclear program. Specifically, Israel needs access to America's formidable bunker-busting bombs, known as the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. These are the only weapons capable of destroying Iran's Fordow uranium enrichment facility, which is buried deep inside a mountain, safe from Israel's current arsenal. Israel argues that without U.S. intervention, the threat will remain. Despite Israel's pleas, the White House has held firm. The United States has explicitly told Israel that it will not participate in any direct strikes on Iran, especially against its nuclear facilities. President Trump, who has long expressed a desire to avoid new foreign wars, appears committed to a strategy of pressure and diplomacy rather than military entanglement. He recently left the G7 summit early to manage the crisis, where he signed a joint statement calling for de-escalation. While the statement affirmed Israel's right to self-defense, it also carefully balanced its language, underscoring the need for a peaceful resolution. In a surprising turn, Iran appears to be responding to these diplomatic overtures. Through various intermediaries, including Oman, Qatar, and even Saudi Arabia, Tehran has signaled that it is open to peace talks. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has conveyed a message to European leaders. Iran is willing to show flexibility in future nuclear negotiations. But this offer comes with a firm condition. The relentless Israeli attacks must stop first. This creates a complex diplomatic puzzle for the United States. It must somehow persuade its ally, Israel, to halt its offensive in order to open a door to a potential long-term solution with its adversary, Iran. To understand why this war is happening now, we have to look at the issue that has fueled tensions for years, Iran's nuclear program. This is not a conflict that began 5 days ago. It is the culmination of a long and simmering shadow war that has now burst into open flame. For years, Israel has watched with growing alarm as Iran has advanced its nuclear capabilities. The breaking point came last week when the International Atomic Energy Agency, the world's nuclear watchdog, officially declared that Iran was in violation of its nuclear obligations, confirming Israel's deepest fears about Tehran's intentions. Israel's primary objective in this war is clear and unambiguous: to permanently cripple Iran's ability to build a nuclear weapon. Israeli officials have stated that they cannot live with the existential threat of a nuclear-armed Iran. Since the conflict began, Israeli strikes have successfully disabled at least 2 of Iran's 3 known uranium enrichment plants. The above-ground facility at Natanz has suffered extensive damage, with its 15,000 centrifuges rendered inoperable. However, Israel knows the job is only partially done. The most critical and well-protected facilities, the underground Cascade Hall at Natanz and the fortress-like Fordo plant, remain untouched and operational. For Iran, the goals are more complex. On one level, its response is about survival and retaliation. The regime cannot allow Israeli attacks on its sovereign territory, especially on symbols of national pride like its nuclear program, to go unanswered. Iran wants to demonstrate that it can and will inflict a painful cost on Israel for its aggression. By launching missiles at major Israeli cities, Iran seeks to deter further attacks and prove that its military reach is formidable. On another level, Iran is engaged in a high-stakes negotiation, using its military response as leverage to force the international community, particularly the United States, to intervene and broker a ceasefire on terms it can accept. This war is also a direct result of a strategic shift that has been underway since late 2023. Over the past year and a half, Israel has systematically worked to weaken Iran's network of regional proxies, including Hamas and Hezbollah. By degrading these groups, Israel effectively isolated Iran, removing the buffer that once allowed Tehran to confront Israel indirectly. This left Iran with fewer options when faced with direct attacks, forcing it into the conventional military confrontation we see today. Each side believes it is acting to secure its own survival, a conviction that makes finding a path to peace incredibly difficult and, honestly, fraught with danger. As we stand on this 5th day of war, the Middle East is balanced on a knife's edge, and the world is holding its breath. There are 3 possible paths forward, each with profound consequences for the region and for global stability. The first, and most frightening, is a continued and even broader escalation. If diplomacy fails and Israel decides it must strike the Fordow facility, it may choose to act alone, risking a massive Iranian retaliation that could draw in other countries. This could trigger a wider regional war, engulfing neighboring states and causing catastrophic economic and humanitarian fallout far beyond the current conflict zone. A second possibility is a fragile, temporary ceasefire. Diplomatic efforts led by the United States and supported by European and regional powers could succeed in convincing both sides to pause the fighting. France's President Macron has already stated that the United States has made a formal offer for a ceasefire. This would provide immediate relief for the civilians suffering on both sides and open a crucial window for negotiation. However, such a truce would likely be tense and unstable. Without addressing the core issues, particularly Iran's nuclear ambitions, a ceasefire would simply be a pause, leaving the fundamental conflict unresolved and ready to erupt again at any moment. The third and most hopeful path is a comprehensive diplomatic settlement. A ceasefire could evolve into broader peace talks, potentially reviving the framework of a nuclear deal. If Iran agrees to verifiable limits on its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions and security guarantees, it could provide a long-term solution. This would require immense political will from all sides, including a commitment from the United States to re-engage diplomatically with Iran, and a willingness from Israel to accept a deal that falls short of the complete dismantlement of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. It is a difficult path, but it is the only one that offers a genuine chance for lasting peace. Ultimately, the choice between these paths will determine the future of the Middle East. The decisions made in the coming hours and days in Washington, Jerusalem, and Tehran will have repercussions for years to come. The immediate challenge is to stop the bloodshed. The long-term challenge is to build a new security architecture for the region that can prevent this kind of devastating conflict from happening again. The stakes could not be higher. The world is watching, hoping that wisdom and restraint will prevail over the powerful pull of war. The question of whether the United States will step in militarily seems answered for now, but its role as a potential peacemaker has never been more critical. The clock is ticking. Thank you for watching, but please do not forget to subscribe and share. Dream with Ambassador Shahid.